कथ जाइए रे घर लागो रंग, कथ जाइए रे घर लागो रंग। मेरा चित्त ना चले मन भयो अंग, मेरा चित्त ना चले मन भयो अंग, कथ जाइए रे। एक दिवस मन भाई उमंग, एक दिवस मन भाई उमंग। घस चंदन जो बाहु सुगंध, घस चंदन जो बाहु सुगंध। पूजन चली ब्रह्म थाई, पूजन चली ब्रह्म थाई। सो ब्रह्म बतायो वै गुरु मन ही माही, सो ब्रह्म बतायो वै गुरु मन ही माही, कथ जाइए रे घर लागो रंग, कथ जाइए रे घर लागो रंग। मेरा चित्त ना चले मन भयो पंग, मेरा चित्त ना चले मन भयो पंग, कथ जाइए रे। जहाँ जाइए तह जल पखान, जहाँ जाइए तह जल पखान। तू पुर रहयो वै सब समान, तू पुर रहयो वै सब समान। वेद पुराण सब देखे जोई, वेद पुराण सब देखे जोई। वहाँ तो जाइए जो यहाँ ना होवे, 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 कथ जाइए रे घर लागो रंग, कथ जाइए रे घर लागो रंग। मेरा चित्त ना चले मन भयो पंग, मेरा चित्त ना चले मन भयो पंग, कथ जाइए रे। सतगुरु में बलहारी तोर, सतगुरु में बलहारी तोर। जिन सकल विकल ब्रह्म काटे मोर, जिन सकल विकल ब्रह्म काटे मोर। रामानंद स्वामी रामत ब्रह्म, रामानंद स्वामी रामत ब्रह्म गुरु का शब्द काटे कोटि करम 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 कथ जइए रे घर लागो रंग कथ जइए रे घर लागो रंग मेरा चित ना चले मन भयो पंग मेरा चित ना चले मन भयो पंग कथ जइए रे कथ जइए रे कथ जइए रे
That was the most soulful rendition I've heard you sing of this song. The sore throat is good. Thank you. I was reading this book written by an English master maybe 100 years ago of his journey to Tibet, where he met his master, whom he refers to as the Nameless Master. So as part of his training, his master mentioned these words to him. So this is the author saying, sometimes, though not often, I would ask a question, but it did not seem to matter whether a reply came by words or other means. I could always feel the pressure of his wisdom making me give thanks. And if his meaning was at all obscure, in reply to my question, he would say, and he would always say this 3 times, murmur not at life's dispensation, nor of your God, but correct your own heart. Your station is appointed by the wisdom of the Eternal. I will say this 2 more times. Murmur not at life's dispensation, nor of your God, but correct your own heart. Your station is appointed by the wisdom of the eternal. So murmur not at life's dispensation, what life has given you, dispensed. Murmur not, nor of your God, your concept of God. It could be religious, it could be a deity, whatever it be. But correct your own heart, not correct your mind. Each word is so potent. Correct your own heart. Your station, which means where you are in life right now, is appointed by the wisdom of the eternal. Which means whatever is the circumstance or situation we find ourselves in, we don't know. We are judging it from a very limited perspective of our mind. So the Master is saying, keep your gods aside for now. Praying to them, begging them, asking for certain outcomes. Let's just keep all that aside. Correct your own heart. What happened to your heart? Through life's ups and downs, through the events you feel were unfair to you, your heart got overridden by your mind. The center of love, which is the heart, got displaced. What was the love which came naturally to the child got displaced by the events which took place in this child's life as it started growing up. Your station is appointed by the wisdom of the eternal. Which means there is an ancient, infinite, all-knowing source which has placed you exactly where you are today. It knows what lessons one has to learn or what one has to unlearn. Because that wisdom of the eternal is not apart from our lives. It is not up there and out there and we are trying to reach it. Nothing can be apart from the all-powerful source. Which means while we are in our deepest pain, it could be financial, it could be emotional, it could be physical, that wisdom has not gone away. And so the mantra of daily living, when it becomes a total acceptance of this divine will, we align with it. Rather than always trying to wish it away, the situation in our life, the person in our life, or the problem between us and the person in our life, rather than trying to correct that and wish it away, to acknowledge and accept that this situation is ordained due to forces beyond my puny intellect. I am too stuck in a cause-effect relationship, judging people and myself all the time. But there is something far deeper, far wiser, which has made me go through the experiences I have been through. What starts happening is, whereas my mind was full of complaint earlier and condemnation, now there's the turning of the wheel. Now the wheel is turning. So next time the person or situation triggers me, now I realize there is nothing apart from the wisdom of the eternal. It may appear to be. It may appear to be. That wise force is operating through this person and this situation I have found myself in. When I start looking at the event in this light, I am now facing it. Now I am facing it. I may have a preference that the person behave differently, a preference that a person be more sensitive than they are, and so on and so forth. But I am not obsessed with this anymore. I realize everyone who has incarnated here has incarnated according to a divine blueprint. And when I find that I trust this force which has generated the blueprint for everyone in my life, I find my obsession with people starts dropping away. And how they should be. In business, if I suffer a big loss suddenly, my entire attention is pulled into this loss. It takes me into depression. And then I start questioning, what did I do wrong? And how do I rectify it so it does not happen again? The latter part is natural. But the problem is, when our business does well, we are not questioning God. Why is my business doing well? The questioning comes when there is a loss. If someone is in a relationship and it is all a bed of roses, there is no questioning God, why is it a bed of roses? How could you do this to me? We are very happy. But when the relationship is in trouble, then all the questioning starts. When one starts living this understanding that both good times and challenging times are aspects of the same force which is orchestrating both of them. And I know from my life's experience, sometimes I'm happy, sometimes I'm sad. Sometimes it's great fun, sometimes it's challenging. When I accept this polarity as the foundation of duality, I make my peace with it. Then I stop demanding from God that things should always be right. I stop moping, sinking into despair. And I start facing the situation. And then I find as I navigate myself through the situation, there is a sense of stillness inside me and silence outside me. I find that my first reaction is not words directed at an individual doing something to me, but it is more of a response. It is a response where I might find I say certain things which are now no longer loaded with emotions to try and make another person feel guilty. I find I now say what is on my mind in a very equanimous way, rather than a pushback. If the need to express myself arises, I express it. Or I'll be surprised to find nothing arises anymore. Because the wisdom of the eternal is the wisdom of silence. Silence means the silence of the thinking mind. Can you imagine if there's someone in your life who is a troubled person? It could be a family member, it could be your spouse, girlfriend, boyfriend, friend, colleague, whatever. Someone who is troubled would like themselves to be heard, perhaps, someone they can talk to. But what tends to happen is that we start adding to the trouble. Rather than just be the listening ear and let the person offload, the ego wants to say, my troubles are bigger than yours. And so it gives back. It has never thought of this opportunity that perhaps I should keep my views aside just for once, for a change maybe, if nothing else. And just listen to the person, say what they have to say. Is it really that difficult? Rather than constantly giving back, which basically means I am more important than you. Keep it aside. And tell yourself, maybe after a couple of days, when I feel the time is right, I'll express myself. So when that happens, it is no longer a reaction. One could say it's about time. Especially if one realizes that no amount of talking is going to convince the other person of what I'm saying. You can spend all your life convincing them. It's not going to happen if it's not going to happen. Rather, deal with your own peace of mind. That is where your peace lies. Your peace does not lie in the person or the event or the situation changing in order for you to be peaceful. Then it will never change. There was a song in there was a song called The Turn of a Friendly Card. And the lyrics were, the game never ends when your whole world depends on the turn of a friendly card. If you are waiting for the card to turn and life to deal you that one good card, the game will never end. So if we are encountering, let's say, a failure, whether in a job, whether in a decision on the stock market, whether in a relationship, when we start accepting that the failure also is guided by the wisdom of the eternal, it is no longer my failure. Failure is the label put on an event which didn't go the way I thought it would go. As far as God is concerned, it is not a failure. It is an event which went exactly as it was ordained. The failure label is stuck by us. I failed. I failed to change the person. I failed to pick the right stock. I failed at work. Something didn't work out. Call it forces of nature, call it karma, whatever label we want to put on it. It is just an event which happened a certain way. Which really has nothing to do with you. Neither does success. Success at work, success in a relationship, on the stock market has nothing to do with you. But the ego loves to think, I did well, so I have succeeded. And why do we feel pain more at a time of failure or at a time of a loss? Because we have got identified with it. So it was a loss to me. My money went in the stock market. I feel it because now I can no longer be identified with that money because it has gone. When I find I made 1 crore on the stock market, it has enhanced my identification. I made 1 crore. It is mine. The pain of the loss is when I lose it, because I lose an identification. Same with the relationship. An identification is lost. With a job. And the strange thing is, I lose all my identifications in deep sleep, and I have no problem with that. Which basically means the impersonal consciousness does not care about identifications. It is the identified consciousness, identified with name and form as a separate entity, and therefore the identification has identifications. So the gloom and despair of daily living for some is by and large because things haven't gone the way I felt they should have gone. Then I start freeing myself. When I realize this, the turning of the wheel, I start freeing myself and start freeing others whom I was holding in bondage of how I feel they should have behaved or reacted, and so on and so forth. Pain will be there. It does not mean pain will go away. If you love something and that thing is the cause of hurt, there will be pain. That is the nature of life and living. But that pain will not be overlaid with psychological suffering, which makes me miserable, my household miserable, and the other miserable. I will no longer be a walking, talking body of misery. It is true when they say, laugh and the world will laugh at you, cry and you cry alone. The main point is time is ticking away. The God-given gift is the gift of presence, of being. So when a master says, abide in your being, he is just pointing to this which you already know. That rather than get so involved and mesmerized by the show, this being, which is your very nature, the foundation, honor it till it's there. That is all. And that cannot be honored if my thinking mind is troubling me most of the time. That being is honored when my mind is a vacant mind, an open mind, an empty mind, a receptive mind. And more importantly, when I honor the being in another, rather than look at them as an individual, then I am abiding in being, not for my own selfish self. When I am allowing the other to abide in their being, rather than taking their peace away. The game never ends till your whole world depends on the turn of a friendly card. And this precious teaching of Advaita is the end of all games. Then what happens? As my mother says most often to her students, then what happens is the love of power becomes the power of love. What does this mean? We all love power, power over the other. Very subtle ways we play this game. Domination and control. The ego is synonymous with power. If I tell you how you should behave with me, it is a power game. And when I start accepting situations and people for the way they are, precisely as they are, that is the power of love. A non-dualistic love. A love which is not dual in nature. It is not a shifty love. Imagine God loving some children a lot and others not enough. God's love is an equal love. Everyone is God's child. What does that mean? It is a total acceptance of the other. When you start loving the other in spite of who they are, it is not a clingy and sticky love which can go up and down with each thing the person says or the expression. It is no longer dependent on that. Then one starts living from the heart. Till then one has fooled oneself that one is living from the heart. Till then it has been the game of deception. We have deceived ourselves and we have deceived others. When the love is unconditional, does not depend on a condition, that is unconditional love. Then that is the power of love. Then we can say we are operating from the heart. And people do the strangest things. We've all faced them. I have over the years. Bizarre maybe. But when now you find that your mantra is, it is what it is, or so be it. Completely out of the ordinary maybe, what the person has said or done, but there's no longer any judgment. In the moment, yes, something arises and immediately cut off by the understanding that it is what it is. That is a total acceptance. That is why when Joel Goldsmith says that it should be the primary thought should be that yours is a peace be still to the errors of the world. What he is pointing at is what you think is an error is only your interpretation of a situation, which appears that God has made an error. God has made an error in my relationship or in the fact that the stock went down when it was supposed to go up. Or a person is not behaving as they should. God has made an error. So, yours is a peace be still to the errors of the world means for yourself. He is pointing at your own thinking mind. Not telling the error to be still. It is your own mind which is in turbulence. The storm is inside you. You think it's outside. And when we start living this way, some strange things start happening. It could be that the other person gets agitated more. Because now what is happening? The other's ego was used to a pattern of resistance. It knew what was coming. The conflict, the tug of war. Because even that has derived an identity for that ego. Now suddenly there's silence. The ego cannot handle it. Why are you keeping quiet? How dare you not reply to me now? What is on your mind? All that starts happening. Very tempting to get involved back into the drama. But when we put our one foot is just embedded in the cement of silence, we don't get sucked in. We know that it is not the other person, it is the other person's ego. Because no ego which is disturbed can handle silence, because silence is the death of the ego. So that also is allowed to play out. And then the other starts relaxing, becomes quieter. It's like a vibratory realignment starts happening. But by and by, the other starts feeling more and more accepted by you. That is what happens. Earlier resistance, now acceptance. Because the power of love is the acceptance of God's creation for what it is. Some of you, especially the women, would do well to sit with Asha and listen to her about her story, the challenges she faced, and how she handled them, which is a source of inspiration. Making no demands on the other. You see, technically or biologically, the other didn't come into the world with you. You came into the world alone. Your birth was the birth of an individual consciousness. The others in your life are on account of Rinanubandhan. Then what right do you have over the other? Do you have any right? Who gave you that right? It's time to realize this. One may find this teaching harsh because it strips you naked of all the games you have been playing for a very long time. But my teacher would call this living the life courageous. So far you have been a coward. Living this life of total acceptance, of surrender to the divine will, is living the life courageous. It's not easy. Easy is to dominate, control, be a bully, and so on and so forth. Be passive aggressive, be aggressive. That is easy. It comes quite naturally for the ego. Life courageous is to see the hand of God behind it all. The life courageous is to accept nobody truly does anything, although it appears that way. Similarly, I am not the doer. If I say something which hurts someone, I didn't mean it, that's for sure. But it hurt the other person. I feel I was just expressing myself because I felt hurt. But what about me hurting the other? And therefore it comes down to only these two things. Thy will be done. And if thy will be done, then it obviously follows that nobody does anything. For me, thy will be done was in my blood from birth. But the nobody does anything, which was such a natural elaboration of thy will be done, got injected into daily living thanks to my Guru. Because thy will be done through people. You cannot exclude people from any spiritual teaching. Any teaching without daily living, without relationships and a reflection on them is a sadhana. You can have a Kriya Yoga sadhana, you can have a Kundalini Yoga sadhana, the Tibetan sadhana which I follow. That sadhana is a complete sadhana if it impacts your daily living. For example, if there is a Kriya Yoga sadhana and as part of that process of Kriya, the Guru or the teaching explains to you how a certain breath work, how a certain chakra is impacted, what it will change in your daily living, and so on and so forth. That is complete. Let's say there is a Western sadhana. It may not be breath work, it may be affirmations or whatever it may be. But if those affirmations are like the Mahavakyas of our Vedas and not just based on materiality, I want a house, I want a relationship, I want this, I want that. If the affirmations themselves are the teaching, it is going to impact daily living. But if we are following a teaching, but there's no impact in daily living, there is no value in it. If I am doing a mantra japa every morning for 1 hour, Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya, and for the rest of the day, I'm a nasty person. I don't know how much that japa will help. The idea of the japa in the first place is to shift the attention of the mind to the jap, away from the mundane to a vibration. Om Namah Shivaya in particular is the mantra of detachment. But if I find that my daily living is full of attachments and depression and blaming and condemnation, what is the value of Om Namah Shivaya japa? This is not to criticize the japa practice. The japa practice has been misunderstood. Why do some traditions give the japa as a mantra? We have not looked at that. Some minds are built a certain way. Let's say they are not receptive to Gyan Yoga. Even Maharaj himself would give the mantra to some of the people who came to him. The first step was to break from the mundane. But what happened is the ego got invested in the japa. I am doing this practice, I am doing it every day for 1 hour, now I will make it 2 hours, and so on and so forth. That's what started happening. And the japa is supposed to work at a subtle level, so that by and by the detachment created from the mundane starts happening when things go wrong in your life. The japa comes to the rescue. That is how the science of the japa operates. So even the masters have said, if you find in a moment of despair or challenge, that mantra starts arising naturally, that is the japa. To be detached from that event. But if I find in my practice I'm doing that, but that is not happening, then the practice is a flawed practice. When the practice is understood, it is bound to impact daily living. Japa is bound to come in when it is meant to come in. I have seen this for myself. A vibration comes and staves off a certain vibration which has emerged. And the end result is peace and harmony. And when the japa in our consciousness is of non-doership, what better japa is there, tell me? It's a constant japa. The japa of non-duality. Isn't it beautiful? Because I'm worshipping God. That is the japa of non-duality. When I see God in everything, when I see all forms, especially those I don't like, being shaped by the same God, my japa is going on, isn't it? Goldsmith had a phrase which I don't use often. Not worth fighting. Wherever you feel like fighting, if you tell yourself it is not worth fighting, what does that mean? Immediately we can say, oh, Krishna, if he said not worth fighting, what happened? Blah, blah, blah. No. What he would say, what we are fighting is a mirage, an appearance. which we have taken to be reality. So if we are fighting a situation or a person in our life, can we win if we are fighting a mirage? We got mesmerized by the mirage, thinking it to be real. We saw the water in the desert and thought, wow, this is water, when it was a mirage. Similarly, when we are fighting individuals in our life, we have got mesmerized by individuality, losing sight of the one reality behind it all. We are fighting individuals. This point was made clear to Arjuna by Krishna. Your fight is not against individuals. They appear to be like that. They appear to be as family, friends, preceptors, and so on and so forth. You have taken on the battle as an individual fighting a battle against individuals. When I am behind it all, and you are an instrument through whom the fighting will happen, and the outcome is not in your control. So even Arjuna was mesmerized by what he saw first and said, oh, I cannot kill them. He was taken in by the show. And as far as we are concerned, that is what we are doing. Not worth fighting does not mean passivity. It means to realize we are fighting a concept in our own mind. Let us relook at that. Is it worth that fight? Someone had come to my mother, and his problem was the first thing he sees in anyone he meets, whether at work, in his satsang, which is a fairly big group of a big guru, is the negative point. The first thing is criticism and negativity. And this person broke down and told my mother, I can't help it. I don't want to criticize. I don't want to be negative, but that's the first thing which comes out from my mouth. See how ingrained this can become. We don't know how many decades in this life or lifetimes of criticism and negativity is very hard to erase. Always finding fault with everyone. The ego loves to do that. And now the realization is there that this trait is there, but the conditioning is so hardwired that to break it is so difficult. Imagine that one person in your life whom you have criticized a lot. It is so hard to do the opposite because the conditioning has become hardwired. To try and praise that person is so difficult. Imagine the shock you will give yourself and the other if you go up to that person and praise them for something. And so the teaching of Advaita is like a reset. When it blooms, when it flowers, we don't know. But the fact that consciousness has been gracious enough to draw people to it by various means, various strategies, means that consciousness, that wisdom of the eternal knows how to go about it. It doesn't need our assistance. It just needs us to step out of our own way. That is why when in Maharaj's attic, all these foreigners used to come from all over the world. When the satsang was going on and one foreigner stepped in, didn't like what he saw and left. And after he left, Maharaj told his satsang, too late. The fact that he stepped here means at some point in the future the seed will sprout. What does that mean? Maharaj was not talking about his greatness. The fact that consciousness brought this body-mind organism even for that 1 second in means the touch had happened. When that seed will sprout, we don't know. Too late. One of my mother's disciples, her first disciple, who is now a guru, is considered a very volatile personality. He is very passionate about Hinduism and all that. And when I met him, he was an editor. And he was working on another project with me. And my mother's first book had one editor who was no longer available, so we were looking for someone. So we asked him to edit it. Because he was very well versed in mythology of different cultures and traditions, and he could add a lot of value to the book. So while he was working on the book, and he was very left-brained, so to speak, he was all about books, lot of learning, lot of knowledge. But while he was working on the book, which was mainly her drawings of her awakening, he got triggered, his energy got triggered. Something he had not experienced before. So he told my mother, because I was there, I remember, he said, I think you are my guru. And my mother was not had not one disciple at the time. She was just an ordinary housewife who had done a series of drawings based on her awakening. She said, I don't want this guru shuru business. I am nobody's guru. And he said, well, too late. You see the conviction. It has got nothing to do with the other. The recognition was his. So he didn't budge. That is the conviction we should have. That consciousness has brought us here. There's no going back. There's no regressing. We would want it to happen faster. That is natural because we have seen enough troubled mind, conflict. But it is never too, it's going to happen. It's an irreversible process. It's too late to think the old way now. You know, Ayush, one point I wanted to elaborate on about your question of how does one recognize that a guru is a guru. And I said what Ramana Maharshi said, by the humility and the sense of respect that you feel for him.
And also the peace of mind that you
Correct. That is the main thing. What was missing was this point I want to make. Because I was reminded of my 30th birthday. My 30th birthday was a very depressing birthday. Because I was on the verge of a very big ad campaign, which would have made me earn a lot of money. And in the morning, the client decided to shelve the campaign after all the bookings had been made in the papers and magazines. And so I decided that I don't want to do anything in the evening. Now my mother, being a mother who cares for the child, was feeling that he must at least call his friends and, it's such a landmark birthday. But I said no. So she said, all right, if you don't call your friends, I'll call my friends. So she called whoever, one or two were there, ladies, they came. And That was it. We were in the living room, these two ladies were there, and the doorbell rang. And when the doorbell rang, in walked in Ramesh Balsekar. So my friend, who was in India at the time, had on his own accord gone and met Ramesh ji and said, "Will you come? My friend has been coming to your satsangs now for about 2-3 months, and I want to surprise him on his 30th birthday. So will you come?" And he never went for anyone's birthday anywhere. And he said yes. And this was planned 3 weeks before my birthday. So I remember distinctly the feeling which was within me when he walked in. And it was a feeling of awe and reverence. It was a feeling like as if God's representative had walked into my house. That is how I would say it. And it was so out of context because I was used to seeing him in his kurta pajama in the satsang room, everyone coming, sitting there. And here he was in shirt, pant, or whatever, I forget what he was wearing, or nice kurta. Coming in as an ordinary 83-year-old man. At that time he was 83. I was 30. But that feeling inside me was something I cannot really express in words. Because the Guru represents an ideal, that which we aspire to, that lofty ideal, So, this kind of reverence and peace and respect, I think these are very good measures. You see, because the Guru represents the source. If reverence is missing, now sometimes some Gurus have a very interesting tool they employ. They'll say, "Don't consider me a Guru, consider me a friend." Right? Why do they say that? Because they realize that it's easier to be a friend with someone than with a Guru figure, at least initially. So they want to make friends with the ego. They know that it's easier to work with certain egos and say, "Bhai, hum dost hain ek dusre ke." So they don't take on that thing. They project themselves as a friend, "Don't call me a guru," so on and so forth. But I have seen what tends to happen is then that friend stays as a friend. Because the Guru principle is the source of all there is. One quality of it is a friend. It is not the only quality. Because it is a transcendental relationship, unlike any other relationship in human existence. The Guru-disciple relationship is beyond definition because it is a relationship of one. The problem with being a friend is it's still a relationship of two if it stays at that level. So these are good pointers if one is trying to figure out for oneself. What is my feeling? What is the feeling which when I saw someone the first time or when I started listening to someone, what feeling came within me? Now the peace part, interestingly, That I felt more with someone I met 2 months before I met Rameshji, and that was Eckhart Tolle. I felt it more strongly with him than with Rameshji. For maybe 1 hour I was sitting with him. And that peace was not just the peace of silence as such, but even what we were speaking about, which was mundane, it was nothing spiritual. It was mundane about the weather in Hong Kong, about what people wear. But it was imbued with such importance. As if it was a very sacred discussion. That I felt. That this conversation has been a very different conversation than the same conversation with another person. And the difference was between my time with Eckhart when we would go on holiday. He didn't like to speak much, and my guru loved to speak. So, with Eckhart, you could not speak, basically. If you were walking on the riverbed, you are walking on the riverbed. If you're going up Glastonbury Tor, you're walking up Glastonbury Tor with nothing happening. And with Rameshji, it was the opposite. Like if I would go and have a cup of tea with him in the evening under the pretext of asking questions for editing his book, which was actually I didn't have anything to ask. But after a moment of silence, he would say, "What's happening at work?" Then I would start and tell him this, that. Then again there'd be silence. He'd look around. "Isn't this such a beautiful living room?" "Yes, yes, Guruji." So he liked to engage. That was his personality. And one day this boy, it was very funny, a very rich boy in the building came and rang his doorbell while I was sitting with him. And so he went himself to open the door. And this boy said, "Your watchman has punctured all the tires of my car. Not just one, not two, not three, but all 4 tires. What is the need of that?" And he went on a rant. He was very frustrated. So Rameshji said, "Look, I'm not the chairman of the building." He said, "No, but you are the be all and end all," and went on and on. He said, "Look, my son is looking after this affair, and I can understand what you are going through." He was really with such a straight face. He tried to calm the boy down and all that. And he said, "Look, right now I'll call my son. You just wait for a minute. I understand the angst you're going through." And I had gotten up to just look what was going on. I could not see the boy outside because he was outside the door. The door was open and Rameshji was here. So then Rameshji closed the door, looked at me. He did like this. Then he went, called up his son. It was so cute. It was amazing. I'll never forget that. Now, can you imagine? Take the sages of the past like Ramana Maharshi, Sri Aurobindo, Yogananda, whoever it is. Imagine if there was YouTube at that time and people in America, in Poland, in Ireland, in Spain, in the US, wherever, felt, arey, YouTube, I'm getting everything, no need to go and see this guy. Whereas in Ramana Maharshi's time, as an example, if you are aware of the close devotees who shifted there to be with him, did their sadhana under his guidance, Guru Ganar, Annamalai Swami, the list is quite endless. They moved there. That era, of course, was different, simpler. But because they were in that field physically, a lot of transformation happened. It does not mean it can't happen long distance. But they had the advantage of not having the option to be long distance. They were away from the teacher and the teaching if they were long distance. The only option was to come there. And there are so many stories of those working in the government department who would come on weekends, who would figure out their lives and accordingly see him regularly. So that is the conditioning I came from, that I had to physically meet Eckhart, I had to physically meet him. I would not know the other way. So that is what I would like to share. So for example, if there is a master like Ramana Maharshi you're drawn to, and if there was a disciple of his who was with him and who's in the body now, I would not miss that opportunity to be with that disciple. Anyone would like to ask something or share anything?
Gautam, I had two questions, not questions, just clarifications maybe. One is conceptual and one is technical. So I'll go with the first one. So like I know like the Sattvic lifestyle is not like a requirement for peace of mind. I understand that. But does it help?
Certainly it helps. Why would ashrams have a sattvic environment otherwise? All ashrams would have a rajasic environment. Why does it help?
Keeps the mind quieter.
What would you call a sattvic environment as?
Like food, alcohol.
Yes, because Bhagwan himself, as an example, said, I don't know the exact words, he was very clear that a vegetarian diet helped the spiritual journey. Why? Because the mind gets less agitated with a vegetarian diet. This has been my own experience. When I used to have chicken, I used to have very strange dreams. And then I realized for myself that the fear and trauma of the chicken being slaughtered is what I was seeing in my dreams. This was my own experience. You see, someone else eating chicken may not have that experience. It doesn't mean it affects everyone the same way. Maybe I was sensitive to it. Now, more important than that, I did an own experiment on myself. I stopped chicken for about 2 months. I didn't have any craving for it. It was fine. And I then thought I'll have it again. Not as a craving, just to see if it affects the body in any way. That night, I felt there were stones in my stomach. The weight was so heavy, which when I was having chicken thrice a week, I did not realize. So from my own experimentation, based on no judgment of whether I should be veg or non-veg, that never struck me, thankfully. I didn't have any guilt about being non-veg. I used to have duck, steaks, everything in my 20s. But I just reached this own conclusion that how could it be good for me if it's giving me certain dreams, if I'm physically feeling weighed down by it. And by, my diet became Sattvic. Now, alcohol also. I enjoyed alcohol. My enjoyment was 2 small pegs on the weekend. I enjoyed it. But quite suddenly, that 2 small pegs became 1 and that 1 became 0. And sometimes I'm with a friend who enjoys alcohol. He'll pour me a cognac. Whether I'll have the whole glass, half or quarter, I don't know. Last time I was at his house, only a third of it could go down. The rest was not going down. And he was very hurt. Because he said, "Yaar, I got a 75,000 rupee bottle for you only."
He's still your friend?
Yeah, he's a very close friend. But I had the whole thing. I just said Om Namah Shivaya and down the hatch. So, what is alcohol? It numbs you. That is why people become more open when they drink. They lose their inhibitions. Technically, it's not good for you. It's not your natural state. So if one is having alcohol because one cannot deal with the world, for example, there's an issue there. If one is an occasional drinker, you have a glass of wine, you have a great evening with friends, I see no harm with that. I have had a few glasses of wine with Eckhart Tolle and it was very enjoyable. So in that sense, it's still Sattvic, right? Because you are not depending on the alcohol anymore. You are not a slave to it. Tomorrow, if I'm in a region of the world, like if I'm in Scotland and someone says, try this smoky single malt, I'll try it. If the feeling does not arise to try it, I won't try it. So it is a very individual thing. But a Sattvic environment, a Sattvic diet surely helps. Because as it is, the mind is agitated. And why add to that agitation with these things? But as I said, it is not necessary. So many gurus are there in our tradition who are non-vegetarian. They could deal with it. Then it's fine. Western gurus have non-vegetarian, seafood and all that. So it's a very individual thing. It's not like a one thing for everyone. Each person has to decide for themselves. So I am not one advocate of veganism and this and that because I don't get polarized on this discussion of veg versus non-veg.
Okay. So I'll ask the other question. So this is, it's a word-based question. I mean, I sometimes, like I'll explain. So for me, ego, the meaning, this is a very technical question. I understand what the concept behind it is. But for me, the word ego is ahankar. And ahankar means aham plus kar, which is I do. And when the ahankar goes away, the do goes away and, I stays, as Bhagavan said, like the burnt rope example that he gave. So that was my always my concept of ahankar. But in a lot of Ramesh's talks and your talk also, you mention, you guys talk about like ego, you refer to ego as me.
Yes.
And that sometimes confuses me, like, because for me, me is like I mean, should it be me, doer? And so is there a reason you guys say this word me?
Yes. It is like Bhagwan saying the self-inquiry is who am I? And Rameshji would say what Bhagwan means is who is this me who considers himself the doer of his actions. To clarify that I and the me are not the same. The me is the doer. I'll tell you one. This will sound lateral to you, but it might be relevant. His last words to me, words of wisdom you could say, is when I had gone to him, and by then I had 2 books which were out, Pointers and The Buddha's Sword. The Buddha's Sword was his essay called The Purpose of Life. The hard copy I still have, a 4-page essay, which I elaborated on with his other concepts and added my own masala, stories of Alexander the Great and this and that, just to make it entertaining, right? So by then what had happened, that time there were no YouTube videos of mine. 1 or 2 emails had started coming in of people who wanted to meet me. Maybe once a month 1 email came. And he was now almost close to giving up his body. So I asked him this question. He knew that a few people were interested in the subject and were contacted. So I said, what do I do if more people start coming? Now one person is coming. And he said, just remember one thing. When people come to you, they don't come to see a me. Which means they are not coming to see this ego. The teaching has drawn them. That is the I. If Rameshji had said they don't come to see an I, it would make no sense. They are coming to see the I, because that single I is the I of all. They are not coming to see the me. Me is the identification with the body and the name. You see, I understood that in that split second.
So me is the one which thinks that he's the doer and he thinks that he's the body.
Yes.
And me is, okay, so me is ahankar basically.
Yes, and the I is the single I. It's amazing because it's so easy to fall into the trap.
So, I mean, this separation kind of helps, especially in English, so.
You know, I'll go further on this. Initially, those who came had a nice cup of tea with me and left. Then by and by, I found 1 or 2 people bent to touch my feet, and it made me very uncomfortable. The first person to bend was not coming for the teaching. He was an astrologer. So Nikhil, who was filming my videos for the Sai Baba channel, was very fond of this, palm reader, who lives or lived near Pune. And so with that man, they did a series of videos on palmistry. And so one day Nikhil said, hey, let's show him your palms. And so we put ink, that Chelpak ink or whatever, and I sent. This man came with his friend to Bombay. I think he was the first one who touched my feet, so unrelated to the teaching. So I felt very odd. I said, what is he doing, I said, why are you doing this? He said, because I've seen your palm. I said, it would help if you gave me some pointers. And he didn't, and he went. Then by and by, maybe 1 out of 50 people would bend down to touch my feet, and I felt, first of all, unworthy of it. I felt they should be touching my guru's feet. I am just parroting the words of my guru. I'm not doing anything else. So it was embarrassing. That is the word to use. I was embarrassed. And I would try stopping them and all. Then I found that everyone how to stop. Some were quicker than my stopping them. It became really funny, this whole thing. And I am reminded of something else very funny. We had gone to meet a master, me and my friend. So when I went down to touch his feet, I touched his feet. When my friend bowed down, fadak, he moved his feet in. So my friend was so upset that he was denied that, and I got the thing, and I could not understand this whole business. Anyway, the point was, I was very uncomfortable about this. And I could not find a resolution to this. Rameshji's statement was there, they don't come to see me. But it didn't resolve into that they are not touching my feet. The feeling was they are touching my feet. Then by the grace of the parampara, I was reading Siddharameshwar Maharaj, and someone asked him, how do you feel when people touch your feet? And his answer was, don't ask me, ask my feet. You see, because it is so clear that the feet being touched are not of the individual. That individual just represents the source, the teaching. That is what is being touched. So this me and I it's very important to get clear on this. In the Siddharameshwar Maharaj tradition, they have something very beautiful. If any of you all are in Bombay and you all do go to the Samadhi, sometimes, depending on the time you go to, there are others there, maybe 1 person, 2, 3, could be anything. They will come and touch your feet and you would bend down and touch their feet. They will always, you just sit at that Samadhi, if there is someone there, they'll come, they'll touch, and the person reciprocates. Because the teaching is to see God in everyone, and this is how it is expressed. So I gave you a lateral example to just drive home this point. Does that help clarify it?
I mean, I was changing my language when I used to, talk or explain to myself. Because I was getting always confused with, for me, I and me were always the same thing as far as the language goes. But I understood koi aur logic hai iske behind which I was not grasping it. But thanks for clarifying that.
Now I'll tell you one more thing which just came to mind. In the Ultimate Understanding, Rameshji's book, the first one I worked on, which was really the toughest. I mean, I think my mind got knotted up when I edited that book. In the end is the letter to God, which he has written. And I loved that letter. It was not there in the book originally. He had given that to me separately, and I said, let's put it in this book since we are doing it. Now that letter to God, he had handwritten and he had signed it as his letter to God. So I laid out the letter and I retained his signature there. And I happened to show it to a fellow devotee while the book was in progress. He said, how could he put his signature there if he is not the doer? I got very confused because I was new to this whole thing. I said, yeah, maybe he should not have put his signature. Because if God was writing the letter, God would not sign it as an individual. So I, in my innocence, went and told this to him, that Guruji, your signature is there, but I feel maybe if it's not there, it's better. He said, who told you? I said, someone told me. He said, but this is the ego writing the letter thanking God. This is me. I am thanking God for my ups and downs, my pleasures and pains. God is not thanking God. And he said, now you please make that signature bigger. He told me that. To get away from this, this spiritual kind of jargon which starts emerging. Keep it simple. It is the ego. The ego is identification with name and form as a separate entity. The ego is expressing itself through daily living. The ego will die with the death of the body. What the flaw is to say kill the ego cannot be killed. It is the sense of doership in the ego which has to be annihilated. So a Jesus will live as a Jesus, a Ramana Maharshi will live as a Ramana Maharshi, and their lives will go on. But because the sense of doership has been destroyed, it is like the remnants of a burnt rope.
Which is I in language terms.
The ego is like the remnants of a burnt rope, which means it cannot tie anything down. So that I has been realized, but they still live as the me. They still face their challenges as the me. So that is why Ramakrishna with cancer said, Mother, why are you torturing me like this? He didn't say, why are you torturing I like this? Why are you torturing me? I am your bhakt. That was a cry in pain of the ego, not of the I. Jesus, why hast thou forsaken me? Why hast thou forsaken me? I am your son and you put me on the cross when I am spreading your word. He didn't say, why hast thou forsaken I? You see? So there's no need to use different words. That is inverted pride. That is, as Rameshji would say, ego coming in through the back door. To keep it simple. Yet he didn't say me and the Father are one. He said I and the Father are one. Then it was the I. So there was the me, not my will, O Lord, but thine be done, and I and the Father are one. It's so beautiful. It's so clear. But we get entangled in this me-I thing.
So Gautam, the everyday living, the response to everyday events, relationship is through the I, but me is only for an operational purpose, for transactional reasons, just for addressing each other, right?
No, it's through the me only.
The response also.
Everything is through the me in daily living.
So it's a refined me.
It is the me without the sense of doership. It is still the me.
So that then the me is dead, right? Then it is only I. It's only.
Why? Because you still have your nature, which is your genetics and your conditioning on which you are operating. It is still the me.
If you became I, you would be God.
When the me never died, me was always ghost. Even after you realize the I, the me stays.
Yes. Now Krishnamurti, I'm reminded of an example if anyone goes and meets Chetan Balsekar, I think he told me this, that one day he saw Krishnamurti getting into his car, and must be after an event or something, and there was a loud bang, and Krishnamurti was all shaken up. You can say, how can I be shaken up? But he was timid by nature. It was his personality. Someone else may not get shaken up. How God made Krishnamurti, the same Krishnamurti who, when he saw the whales being slaughtered on TV, could not bear what he saw, so he switched off the TV. Now, let's be clear, he had realized the I, but he still was living as the me. It doesn't mean all his emotional state and all is a blank state and he is living like the I. How is it possible? He will be basis of his nature. But when the sense of doership is destroyed, which is what the Gita is about, it is not about being the I or becoming the I. It is the me operating only as the me, as a mechanism in daily living, me and the other. So we should not get entangled in these words, because then we can get lost in them. That I is the one I. So when I see the hand of God behind everyone, let's say I have 10 staff members working for me, 2 are exceptional at their job, 5 are average, and 3 are really bad. And when I have this full understanding, everyone is doing their best based on their version of best is, which I don't know. I have to decide as the employer, whom do I keep, whom do I let go, whom do I give a good increment, whom do I not. But when I'm no longer taking it personally, that, arey, this chap is useless in my team, he's a faltu worker, he's no good. When that dialogue is finished, when I have absorbed the team of the sense of doership, I am no longer dealing the way I used to deal, with blame and hatred and condemnation. So the doership is dissolved, but this me still has to take a decision, but the me has realized that everything is the I.
Including the desires that arise?
Everything.
Including the me, right?
Yes. So life still goes on. But because now this whole dimension of doership has got transformed, just see how it changes your relationship with your staff members. It does not mean you'll be a paragon of love as far as they are concerned. You have your own personality, they have theirs. But you accept that this person performed because it was God's will, this one didn't because it was God's will. That is realizing the I.
So coming back to the desire, do we honor the desire that arises? Or we just look at it as a thought and let it pass?
The desire arises, you try to.
But then that is like perpetuating the karma.
Really? In what way? In fact, suppressing desires is the problem. Indulging in desires is also a problem because the me with its sense of doership indulges in desires. But a desire comes up, I have to decide, can I try fulfilling it? Yes, I can. Does it harm anyone? No, it doesn't. Okay, let me try. Results are not in my control. If the desire is meant to be realized, it will be realized. If it is God's will. So the sage is not attached to the outcome of the desire arising. The desires don't have that kind of a grip on the sage. Maharaj said, with no desires, you're dead. He actually said, with no desires, you're dead, and with low desires, you're a ghost.
But he also said something like desire is the highest bliss or something like that.
Did he?
Yeah, I read. That state of being desireless, whatever. Yeah.
Desirelessness is the highest bliss.
Yeah. Same thing, right?
It is.
But it's contradictory.
In what way?
Because desires are still there.
Yeah. Desires will be there, no?
No, but he was talking about a state which is completely different.
But that was not the negation of the desire. A state of desirelessness is reached when one has fulfilled desires and realized that happiness is not to be found through the fulfillment of desires. You cannot bypass the in-between and go straight to that. That is why this teaching is very practical. Your own experience by and by will lead to that. It's a natural cycle of time.
So the sage doesn't have any desire.
The sage
Doesn't have any desire because he's in a state of the ones who are in samadhi.
The ones who are in samadhi, no desire.
But desire is involvement, no?
No, desire is not involved.
I got it was like want versus wanting. Desire is want and wanting is clinging to the desire.
Yeah.
Can we
True.
say that something like the me is the character in a movie, knowing that it is actually the screen? So the screen is the I, and the me is the character playing the movie, but with an inherent understanding that I am actually the screen. So any desires that come up are actually from the screen, from the source, but the actor has to play it out, right?
That will be the understanding of the awakened me. It will not be the understanding of the unawakened me. Well said. But of the awakened me. For example, you have said this. Someone who has not been on the spiritual path will not imagine saying this.
That's so clear, actually.
Because they are lost in playing that role, thinking they are playing it. So even the concept of the screen will not arise for them.
So in that case, there is no problem with desire. The problem is in doership.
There is a problem in desire in the sense, one could say, is it harmful to someone else or to myself? Now let's just talk about simple desires, for example. Let's say I desire to earn 100,000 rupees so I can travel to a certain place. What is the harm in this desire? Should I then say, oh, I should be a sage, I should be desireless? So the desire comes, I have to go to a certain place, I need the money. So I will try fulfilling that desire. The sage will understand that all I can do is try. Whether it is fulfilled or not is God's will. That is what happens. If I try suppressing a desire, there can be more harm than good. Because it can erupt in different ways. I suppress one desire and something erupts in anger, which is harming someone else. We don't know how it works. And that is why Rameshji would say the sage is the Mahabhogi, the supreme enjoyer. Because when he is enjoying the desire, it is 100%. But he is not attached to that. He does not pursue it, he does not wish for it again. It's over, finished. And make no mistake, even the desire for enlightenment is not a harmful desire. It is such an earnest desire. Imagine if that did not arise, one would live an unconscious life. So, how can you say one should be desireless? Yes, he would say be cautious of the desire for enlightenment because it can burn your house down. That he would say. And all desires come from the source. It is not my desire. You know, I remember, amazing how memory throws these things up. There was this boy in our school who was not from a rich family. And in our PT class, you were allowed to wear not just the school PT shoes, those white ones, but you could bring your own shoes. So one rich boy had bought this very fancy pair of shoes, which disappeared. They were stolen. And the class, the cleaners of the school, teachers were all summoned, everyone was examined. They could not find who stole the shoes. And then after 2 weeks, one boy went to the principal and I said, I saw the shoes on Peter, let's say. He was wearing them when I met him in Kolaba. So they called Peter in and humiliated him in front of the whole class. Now, there were few of us who you could say were more sensitive than the others. And a friend of mine said, you know, his father would never buy him nice shoes. He would always feel, Peter would always feel that I wish I had a nice pair of shoes. So what happened? A desire arose in Peter. Was it his desire? Could you really say it was Peter's desire? Or because of his circumstances, because of the lack of money, because he saw his fellow classmates wearing nice pairs of shoes, a desire arose that even I should wear it. Now what can Peter do? He does not have money. He steals them. Was the theft his doing also? Can't you see how circumstantial everything is based on the conditioning? So desires arise. We don't know where they come from. We can analyze it away, but the fact is they come. Different people have different desires. Someone will have a desire for God, someone will have a desire for money, someone will have a desire for a relationship, whatever it may be. The problem is that it is my desire. The minute that sets in, then there's trouble because there's involvement in the desire. So I too don't think a desire arising is a problem unless it becomes one.
You said also if it harms somebody, right?
Yeah.
So what if you harm someone unknowingly? Like say you did something which they thought was harmful. Is that like a problem?
It is a problem. But you did it unknowingly.
No, like there was no intent or something.
That is what normally happens. You don't have an intention and someone gets hurt. So what happens then in that case? You apologize. And you say, I didn't mean to hurt you, but you've got hurt and I'm sorry. And because your conscience is clear, because you didn't have it in your heart to hurt the person, yet the person got hurt, there is no guilt and shame. That is what happens. That is how karma operates between people. You know, you intend something, something else happens. When you get quite taken aback, how did this happen? My intention was different.
But in that situation, it's not best to let it be. Isn't it about worship to like sort of apologize? And
No, I think it's an absence of humility which stops you from apologizing. It is the opposite. Would you want someone to hurt you and then they don't say sorry? Wouldn't you prefer that they say, I'm really sorry, Siddhant, I didn't mean it? Imagine if they kept quiet. The sage will not hesitate to say sorry because he knows he's saying sorry to himself. He has hurt an aspect of himself. Can you imagine? You may find this hard, that one person in your life who has hurt you a lot. Just tell that person, I'm sorry if I have hurt you. You will not believe how it will transform the relationship. You feel you have been hurt a lot by this one person. Say the opposite. Definitely you have hurt that person in some way, sometime. But because we have been so absorbed by our own hurt, obsessed with it, let's try it once. It can be a game changer. There was a friend I lost touch with recently. For some reason, it was not happening. I was always postponing meeting them. One thing was happening, another thing. And he called me the other day and he said, my daughter asked me to call you and ask you, have I offended you in any way? I was so touched because he had not offended me. It is just that I was postponing meeting him for some reason or the other. Too much was happening, going on. So rather than him keeping quiet, me keeping quiet, isn't it a nice feeling when you reach out? Because you are reaching out to yourself, but you think you are reaching out to another individual. That is what is happening.
it's really hard to see the other person as yourself in a very uncomfortable situation. Extremely hard. Like say if it's like really conflict driven or something really tough.
It is hard. I agree. I agree. And yet it is not.
Yeah.
Because if you just were to transfer your consciousness to that person and imagine I had this set of genetics, conditioning, life experiences, I might have said the same thing. Then it's not hard.
How do you control your anger and all those negative thoughts, insecurities?
You do not control anger.
I could say stop.
Stop being angry. Have you tried it?
I tried, but I failed.
Everyone will fail. The first step is not about controlling the anger because the anger arises in the moment. but to ask yourself, what is the origin of this anger? Is it because the other has said something which I don't like? Is it because the other has done something which I don't like? So rather than stopping the anger, let's understand the anger, where it's coming from, because we tend not to do that. We are just, oh, I'm angry. We have not looked at it. When we start looking at the foundation of this anger, we find most anger is directed at an individual who has done something to me. And what then happens, because someone's nature might be to be angry, is I am not lost in that anger and I have not stretched the anger in the duration of time, which means I don't go on a rant. Anger has arisen. The understanding comes, no one is the doer of the actions, including me. I didn't will the anger deliberately, right? That understanding cuts off the involvement in the anger in the duration of time. So one person may get angry in the moment, the other may carry it on and on and on and on as a rant. You're really giving it to that person non-stop is involvement in the anger. Biological anger arises in the moment. The understanding cuts it off. If you find you are getting involved in the anger and stretching it in the duration of time, and actually what happens is we start telling the same thing to the person again and again, that means we are involved in the anger. So that involvement starts getting cut off. Then what will happen? I might find myself getting angry in the moment and then apologizing to the person. I'm really sorry if you got hurt by the words I spoke, but I didn't mean it that way, but it happened. Or this is what I truly felt. Whatever it be, the words you choose. So by and by, your thinking mind, which is carrying the load of anger, starts dropping it. It is not holding on to the fire of anger like it used to earlier. So the flames of the anger start burning you less and less. See, someone will have a fight at home, they are very angry, and on the road there'll be road rage because the anger is expressed in another form. So are we holding on to that anger? Because that involvement in the anger first has to be addressed. Some personalities are designed to get angry, depending on various factors. Some are not. Some get irritated but not angry. It's all different for different people. But by and by, when you realize that you are not directing your anger at an individual, you will find that anger loses its burn power. Right now, you are blaming and accusing and hating someone for doing something to you. So that is adding fuel to the fire. When that goes, that fire is not able to sustain itself. Take a havan kund. You light the fire, but you don't add samagri to it. It's going to die very soon. But you keep adding stuff for 45 minutes, it's going to keep burning.
So how should I stop all those negative thoughts coming and that makes me more and more angry?
It is this whole teaching which does that job. To be immersed in the teaching, understand it, understand why people are the way God made them. That is what does the job. You don't have to do it. It will be a very difficult task to do all this yourself. The new conditioning you receive when you hear, like you've heard, like no one does anything. Is that serious? All the time I thought people did things. When that window is slightly open and you start seeing people in a different light, that is which will stop you from adding fuel to the fire. It is a natural process. Otherwise, again, it's too much doing. It will happen. Negative thoughts. We are life negative. We are life negative, basically. What does that mean? Negative thoughts is a thought which threatens us. We call it negative. We must be positive. Because positivity does not threaten us. So, what is my negative thinking? What is my content of thinking negative thoughts? What is it based on? You'll be surprised. Most of it will be based on doership. If you just ask yourself this question today and make a list of just 3 or 5 negative thoughts, we can explore them. It would be foolish to tell someone don't think negative thoughts. Because life makes us negative. Experiences of life make us negative. It's not our doing. Now we are understanding. What is this? Why are there negative thoughts? What is their foundation? Nobody is saying negative thoughts are bad. This teaching is not saying that. It is saying, look at them. What is behind them? Why are they there? What are they based on? So it is like a recalibration of my entire process of viewing the world. I was viewing it one way with generated negativity and not only anger but involvement in the anger where I'm keeping on going on and on. Now I'm viewing it another way. There's another possibility of viewing the situation and myself and the other, and let us see what this possibility unfolds. A new way of seeing. So far, I am seeing things at face value with these eyes. Now, there's an opportunity for the eye of wisdom to start operating, to see the unseen, to see what is behind the scene. What is that force driving everything that I see? The person I am with, the situation I am in. So now there's a possibility that the eye of wisdom, the single eye, not the eyes of duality, sees the one behind it all. That starts bringing about changes. It doesn't need you to do it. Yeah. Okay, so we meet at 4 o'clock.